Hello everyone, Mr. Happy here, and welcome to my overview and thoughts on the unofficial translation for the live letter 26. Now, we have the unofficial translation here, which as you can see, a lot of people up top are definitely going through and examining right now. As per usual, thank you, Marco. I've included his Twitter on the document right here, so if you want to go over there and follow him. He's been doing these translations for us for quite some time, and always remember to show some appreciation for anyone who does this in the community. So thank you again, Marco, and also shoutouts to SIG and, of course, the community team for doing the other unofficial and official live translations. So getting right into it, the second half, I'll tell you right now, they brought in the woman who does the Japanese voice acting for Kral. So there wasn't a whole lot for that, but in the first half, they discussed the current issues in their game design, as well as talked about their plans for patch 3.2, which is really just what dungeons are we going to see, what primal are we going to see, etc., the usual stuff. So they were also drinking because it was technically the Merry Christmas episode, but first they wanted to discuss what is wrong with the game currently. And they flat out said that their design decisions were either wrong or were poorly balanced, and these are the adjustments they're going to be making going forward. And that includes Alexander Savage, the diadem, and the animal weapon. So the animal weapons really didn't have too much to talk about. They basically tied the root of all of their problems into Alexander Savage, and there's actually a very long post by Yoshi P on the official forums about it as well, that I should probably include in the notes or in the description of the video. The TLDR was, because the difficulty of Savage was so high, and the rewards weren't balanced properly, it led to a lot of other poor decision making in the rewards for other content that really affected basically just how incentivized people were to do content. So Alexander Savage's difficulty was basically way too high. The next Alexander Savage, Alexander Midas Savage, is going to sit somewhere between second coil and final coil in difficulty, which is going to make it a lot more appealing to the masses of players. They shouldn't feel the need to be transferring off of servers, which was one problem they listed. And there shouldn't be people that outright just feel like they can't ever get it done. And on top of that, they said that the DPS checks were too strict, which made so that even when you were increasing an item level, people weren't seeing meaningful progression added onto their experience. So, in order to alleviate these things, there's a few things they're doing. For one, Alexander Savage is, like I said, going to sit between second and final coil difficulty from now on. So, second coil was probably the peak of their difficulty, if we take out all the flubs of turn 5. And final coil was all right. Like, those were both pretty good grounds. I think this will be a decent difficulty level for the majority of middle core players, with hardcore players probably clearing it in 2 or 3 weeks, somewhere along those lines. On top of that, they also believe that its item level was too close to the item level of so many other pieces of content that it made balancing other pieces of content's rewards much more difficult. So they gave the example that if Savage weapons had been I-215, it would have made balancing a lot better for other content. So this may lead to reworking some of the item level of the raid gear. They say they are doing work on item level balancing for the next patch. So keep that in mind. You may see Savage gear just being head and shoulders, not head and shoulders, but being better overall than your other gear through the diadem or through other means that come out later. And on top of that, they're planning potentially a raid finder. Now, this isn't like your party finder, this is a cross-server raid finder so that people don't feel pressured to leave their server just to find a raid group. Now, I don't know if it's like duty finder for raids because we have normal mode. It seems to be more of a means of queuing up cross-server with a party finder-like system just for the sake of doing a raid. So you can have raid groups that are technically a cross-server, and that if your server's not populated, you can still find groups to do this end-game content. So I'm interested to see how cross-server finders work, especially if they decide to implement it like a cross-server party finder for anything, as long as it's not like server-related content like Fates. It could be something that's going to work for a lot of servers, especially the less populated servers that happen to be on high population data centers. So I want to see how it works, because one thing we've learned at this point about Square Enix is that they generally have poor implementation, but then make decent changes over time. So I think that may happen here with the raid finder as well, but hopefully they've now kind of learned their lessons with Savage and whatnot, of what to do and what the players actually find fun and exciting to progress on. Now for the diadem, they still link this back to Alexander Savage, why they made the rewards I-210. They don't want diadem gear to overshadow raid gear. That's another thing that they made very, very clear. And they felt like they pretty much they let diadem be too free. Because it was so free, it ultimately came down to players were just grinding. That's all they were doing. They find the best spot and just grind there, as opposed to doing what it was meant to do, where you would fly around, explore, complete objectives, and kill enemies along the way. So they want to enhance objectives, and if I can find the link actually over here, they actually, on that same comment where they talked about Alexander Savage's difficulty, they made a few notes of changes they're actually going to be making. They're going to make more chances for exploration. They're going to make a system for matching routes with different objectives, such as battle or gathering focus. Sounds like two different queues, diadem gathering, diadem battle. Add variation to the exploration objectives and make it more fun to explore as an individual party. Create set rewards for it and make it so that farming is not the only objective. And reduce the content time and turn it into content that does not rely greatly on player skill. Not like it did before, but it basically, they want to make it more like a zone that you are constantly traveling around in. If they do that successfully, that is honestly all I want out of the diadem. Because obviously, I don't mind sitting there and farming in one spot, maybe once a day. But it's definitely not something that feels sustainable unless you're a hardcore fan of things like Diablo 3 and whatnot. So these changes are going to be coming over maintenances. Around 3.2, we can also expect a lot of the bigger changes to hit. So they really want people doing the diadem mostly to get materia for the new materia changes coming in 3.2. I think that these are probably going to be good changes. Hopefully them adding rules, as they've stated it, will make it so that with some direction, it's going to be a bit more fun of a piece of content. Now, after that, they spoke about anima weapons, and it turns out that my guess was correct. That the biggest issue with anima weapons is Savage. I guessed this maybe a day or two after they came out, that the main reason why the final piece of the grind was so long is because they compared it to the time and difficulty investment of Alexander Savage and A4 and the weapons that were locked behind there. And they pretty much outright said that. However, their balance is directly linked to the item levels of the rewards for Alexander Gordius Savage. They literally said that outright. So, since it is currently only possible to obtain an I-210 weapon, the time and effort required to create an anima weapon was set to be roughly the same level with this as the benchmark. So, they also discussed some of the other issues with the anima weapon, or some of the other design choices they have. So, they flat out said, anima weapons will not be the strongest weapon at the same time as the rewards for clearing the hardest difficulty content. Clearing the hardest difficulty content will not be required to get an anima weapon, and it will not you will not require the hardest content to get an anima weapon. Now, that being said, I kind of got that. Like, this is stuff that is normal to me. I know a lot of people, that's like not really an adequate answer. It's more of an explanation of the reason behind the anima weapon. That being said, I get it. The thing is, if you're looking for something that does require time without a lot of effort, you can look at esoterics weapons. So it's going to be a difficult task balancing the anima weapon when we already have a time-gated alternative to item level. The difference being that it can't actually make it to the maximum item level without clearing Alexander Savage in this case. They also said that if they had done item level properly, that this would have been out in 3.1, and that part of the issue was, again, that the item level was going to be the same as Alexander. So they were debating whether or not to add gob dips in 3.15 originally, mostly because it was going to basically make A4 Savage meaningless. And I can see where the fear was there. Same deal. If they said that if they had made the weapon I-215, that they could have done gob dips and they could have done anima weapons, and they would have had more alternatives to getting weapons outside of just Savage or anima weapon, which they feel is an important thing to balance the different ways players want to approach the game. So, that's good to hear. It still doesn't, we're basically, what he's saying is we're not getting nerfs on the current quest, but that the future quest will be paced better than this one, because this one was paced so poorly because they had to make it match Alexander Savage's difficulty in terms of the effort put in. The next two steps are currently set for 3.25 and 3.3. So, and this is, again, based on the changes they are going to be making to the item level of Alexander Midas Savage. So I'm curious to see where it goes from here. I'm one of those people who didn't think the grind was that bad. I'm the person who maybe thought that the crafting was overboard, even though it very much just reminds me of the Alexandrite quest. The thing is, I'm expecting another Alexandrite-esque part of the quest at some point, so it's kind of pointless to compare it to that. That being said, I'm still going to do mine 48 out of 80. So glad to see that they're learning their lesson about the difficulties of vertical progression, because it was easy to say that they did not do a good job of conveying that they understood vertical progression at all in the last couple of patches. So I was really happy to see the way they address the community. Also the fact that it's basically always going to rehash old content. That's basically what the Zodiac weapon is. It's, and the Anima weapon, that's what they are, is to get people to do content that's less popular. They embrace that. That's what it is. And they just want to be very clear that is what the weapon is and that is what it will be. I appreciate the clarity there because that clarity, while it was there for me, it wasn't there for everyone. So it was kind of a necessary evil. Then they spoke about housing. So now they actually started talking about 3.2 content and on. 3.2 and on content. Housing is the first thing. So in 3.3, they will be increasing the number of plots available. But there is not going to be Ishgard yet. The Dragon Song War is still ongoing. That being said, after 3.3, they're going to start working on Ishgard housing. Now, there's debate whether that was a lore thing, because, oh, is the Dragon Song War going to end in 3.3? It seemed that they told us a while ago that their goal was to do this. It was to remove unused plots, then increase plot amounts, then implement Ishgard housing. They told us this, I believe, in the last live letter or the one before it. So I don't know that it is lore related. I have to say I don't understand exactly what Yoshi P says, but it's at least what their original plan was. So Ishgard housing coming sometime after 3.3. They're also going to increase the furnishing limit. They're also going to add apartments, which are basically like free company rooms, but without the need for a free company house. So if you're a player that doesn't want a full-blown plot, you just want a room to decorate and call your own and invite your friends over to, that will be available in the form of apartments coming in a later patch. They're also working on indoor gardening pots and new seeds, so that way if you do have these apartments, you're still able to participate in gardening content. And I imagine that that will, maybe they'll sort of expand on the whole Chocobo stable thing, because I know that, you know, training your Chocobo is another big deal, and the Choco Keep is really the way that's going to be done. Also, crafting. They're just put some emphasis that crafting gear for raids is going to be more important starting in 3.2. It's going to be strong, so it's going to be hashtag worth. Another thing I forgot to mention in Alexander Savage, they said that, and I think I have it in the notes right up here. Do I not have it? Maybe it's down a little bit lower. They said something else about Alexander Savage that I'm trying to remember right now. But I have it in my notes somewhere, so I'm sure I'll find it. So new main scenario quests are going to be added, of course, 3.2. New side quests, including the Nath Beast Tribe quests, are going to be added in 3.2. The new dungeons, Lost City of Amtapor hard mode, high five for my guess right there. And it's basically going to cover what happened after Diabolos left. I'm just going to go ahead and guess the Mamuljaw took it over, because, I don't know, I just have a feeling. But the Mamuljaw aren't even there, so that doesn't make sense. We're going to see what happened in the Lost City of Amtapor after Diabolos was resurrected. The Anti-Tower also is another dungeon, and this is actually going to be part of the main story, unlike St. Mosyan's Arboretum. So, okay, that's nice. I mean, I guess that'll make the main story feel a little bit more impactful. They probably took some feedback from 3.1 maybe into consideration there. We also have new trials. They're going to be starting the Warring Triad series. So 3.2, 3.3, and 3.4, we can pretty much expect all of the Triad in order to make the appearance. The first one is going to be the Fiend, also known as Sephiroth. Not Sephiroth, Sephiroth. In Final Fantasy VI, he represented the Fiend, and he is going to be fought in Containment Bay S1T7, and he will have a normal mode and an extreme mode. So, just so you know, the person who designed Titan is making this fight, so you'll probably fall off at some point. It's going to be closer to Ravana's difficulty, so if you're someone who hasn't beaten Thordan yet and you're concerned, they said Thordan's probably going to be the hardest extreme primal they ever do. So, expect this to be similar to the Ravana level. So the new raid is called Alexander Midas. It's the other hand. It's Alexander's left hand. And there will be a savage difficulty. There will be a normal and a savage. Oh, this is exactly what it was. So there's not going to be a 2-week gap between normal and savage releasing. I imagine you'll have to be normal to get into savage, but the race is going to be on to get through normal and then get into savage as quick as possible. So I fully expect normal to be beat within an hour and savage to be immediately on people's radar when it comes to, you know, trying to progress fast. And also they showed a picture of 2 Fausts as the new guards. So it's not 1 Faust now, it's 2 Fausts. So there's 2 Faust senseis now. I couldn't believe that they had 2 Fausts now as the Gatekeeper. Instead of 1, there's now 2. I also imagine it's going to be a lot more gold because Midas, you know, I'm assuming that that's going to be a big difference in appearance there. But I'm curious to see how they're going to make one of the arms look different from the other arm when it's kind of stupid to imagine Alexander has 2 different looking arms on the inside. Granted, it is a castle, So maybe they design each arm with its own function as opposed to more of just they're just walking. They're just for walking. So maybe that'll be why. Now, new PvP content. I was really excited for this part. They're adding a new type of PvP called the Feast. And whereas before it was a deathmatch, this is more of a point-based system. For example, when a player gets a kill, they're going to collect gil. And when you defeat that player, you'll get all their gil. So basically, it's going to be which team can collect the most or collect a certain amount within the time limit, or reaches a certain amount first. So that's just the base of the rules. There are other rules involved, but it is going to basically make it so you have an objective as a team. You're not just going to want to go for the healer because the healer doesn't have any gil. So if you just go for them, then you're not actually making much progress. The other team will probably start outscaling you. And that seems to be their solution to everyone. Go for the healer. Granted, when you go for the healer, it makes killing the rest of the team a little bit easier. It also makes it seem like it's not going to be one death and you're out. It makes it seem like you'll be able to respawn on top of that, which should be interesting. So there's going to be 5 different PvP modes for the Feast. Basically discussing what applies rule-wise as well as how many people are playing. So the new Battleground, equivalent to Seal Rock, is 8 versus 8. Your new rating, because they're adding PvP ranking in this patch, and it'll be based on your win-loss ratio and your ELO and whatnot, your MMR, whatever term you want to use. And this is a just for fun mode. You can get wolf marks from it. You can kill people. It's 8v8. No Grand Company restrictions. So it should just be for fun. They're also going to have 4 versus 4 solo queue with and without PvP rankings. So if you've played like any sort of competitive game, MOBA, for example, League of Legends has normal and ranked. It's the same thing. You can solo queue in, which means you don't have to worry about another group being a pre-made of 3 with the 4th person being solo. Everyone has to solo queue. So it is just completely random, and it's on you to really carry the team to get a higher rating. They also have party matchmaking, light party matchmaking, where ratings do and do not apply. So it's a lot of PvP modes. The only concern is that it may be too diluted of a PvP diversity. I also see no mention of Secure Slaughter being brought up to 60, which is concerning for me. I'm kind of happy, though, that they're going with this many different modes, because it really does appeal to all the different type of PvP players. Still, the concern is it too diluted? We'll have to wait and see. I definitely am going to be investing more into PvP for this mode. I believe that the solo queue where rankings don't apply are item level synced as well. I don't recall if they said that or not. Whereas the other ones, the PvP gear will matter. So you will have a reason to have PvP gear, I believe, in the 4 versus 4 where rankings do apply. And of course, each of these modes are going to have actual rewards. I imagine challenge logs for them as well. And on top of that, every major patch, they're going to reset everyone's ELO and MMR in the rankings, and rewards will be doled out to people who are towards the top of the ranking ladder. The very first preseason is going to be 3.2 to 3.25. They're going to use that as a means of giving people time to test the content and see if there's any adjustments they need to make before they actually make the full ranked system live. So it's more than I expected PvP-wise, and I'm pretty happy with this implementation, especially a for-fun implementation mode, or a for-fun PvP implementation that is not Grand Company restricted. 8 versus 8 is a pretty good size for this kind of content, just for fun. So I'm happy they thought of the more competitive side and the less competitive side, that people just want to do PvP for fun. Hopefully it gets added to the PvP roulette as well. So then they also, this is where they started going off into the kind of other features of the patch. For example, the Orchestra, or whatever it's actually called, is a jukebox that you'll be able to craft. And basically it's going to start with a single song, but then you can go and do content or buy songs from vendors or whatnot in order to get additional songs. So, you know how people were doing card hunting for Triple Triad when that first came out? It's going to be like that, but people are going to be song hunting, pretty much. Go beat Titan, get Titan's track. Go beat Leviathan, get Leviathan's track. Beat Ravana's track. Alexander, get Alexander, over and over again. And there's going to be new achievements related to it. And they're going to add, they said 30 new songs a patch. I don't know if there's really going to be 30 new songs. Unless I don't know. I have to look through all my albums to see if they even have 30 songs a patch they can add. We'll see. Though it's definitely something people have been requesting, and it seems they wanted to make it a piece of content on top of that. So it should be fun. People enjoy going back and doing the old stuff, having a reason to go back and do the old stuff. It worked for Triple Triad. I think it'll work for the Orchestra as well. Then they have the Beginner's Hall that will be implemented as well. And this is for training to teach people their jobs. Now, while the end hope is that it will help people at end game, it's going to be a feature that's available as early as like level 15, before you even go into Sastasha normal. So they're hoping that people will use it as they're leveling to practice their job. There's going to be challenges affiliated with it. There's going to be rewards, achievements that reward glamour, and eventually you can graduate from the Hall of Novice or the Beginner's Hall, whatever you want to call it, and you'll get, sort of like a graduation suit. So hopefully that's enough incentive to get people to go through it and actually learn the basics of their job and how it functions. I'm curious to see the implementation. Hopefully it gives experience points too. That would be really nice to incentivize players who are new to really go in there, is to also give it experience points like guild hests. I don't expect to give it a lot, maybe no more than guild hests, but definitely something worth investing your time into as a new player. They're also incorporating the mentor system, where someone can literally become your senpai. After obtaining certain achievements in the game, you can actually become a mentor of different levels of content, whether that's gathering, crafting, or combat. There's also going to be a mentor roulette, or as I call it, the senpai roulette, where you can be matched up with a teacher who can tell you things. Hopefully this doesn't get abused and people literally use it like, oh, I'm a mentor, and then you go and you tell the people, yo, you're a scrub, GG, you suck. Hopefully it doesn't get misused for that. There'll probably be some isolated cases of it, but hopefully people do take the mentor system seriously in this case. They seem to be trying to add pieces of content that will bring the average skill of the player base up by giving them tools that are both rewarding and fun to do. And that is also included in the new striking dummy training modes that they mentioned, which the specific instance is called Stone, Sky, and Sea. And this is a striking dummy that you actually need to fight. Previously, in earlier live letters, they mentioned that it would have mechanics you would have to do. And they're basically going to be using this as a means of determining effective damage and skill on your job without using a parser or without using a meter. So he expects that people will probably have like time limits, like must have beat Stone, Sky, and Sea in under 3.5 minutes or something like that. He expects people will probably use it as a measuring point for that, as opposed to just doing DPS. But we'll see, because mechanics in a real fight and mechanics on a training dummy are two very, very different things. It's a good baseline to go off of, but we'll see how much it actually ends up impacting people. But to have a striking dummy that fights back is always a welcome thing, Dummy DPS, always great to have. So many people helps them work on their opener, but it's all about getting people doing mechanics, and hopefully this helps with that. Also, they said the changes to the materia system. They didn't go into any more detail. It's the same thing that we reiterated in a previous video. You'll be able to put one piece of materia on raid gear. You'll only be able to... so you won't be able to overmeld it. You won't be able to overmeld raid gear, just so you're clear. You'll be able to overmeld crafted gear, but you won't be able to meld as many main stat melds. You can only meld main stats onto the pre-given slot. So if it has 2 open slots, you can put, like, for example, strength into those, but the 3 remaining overmelds, you wouldn't be able to put strength into those. So that's going to be a new change to the materia system. And on top of that, with the diadem getting changes, they definitely want people utilizing the diadem to get more materia. Also, the new Elegant Tomestones will be coming out. Now, there's a lot of names going around. Tomestones of Transcendence, Tomestones of History, Tomestones of Folklore. It's one of them. Something along those lines. Transcendence seems to be the most popular translation right now. So that sounds pretty cool. Imagine getting your Tomestone weapon. Like, I got my Transcendent weapon. Sounds better than Anima weapon, doesn't it? Also, the ability to sell items directly from your retainer. New one. Minimap elevation. I actually got a request about this on Mondays with Mr. Happy this week, so that's pretty massive. To be able to tell players when an objective is above or below them. Something that's honestly way overdue. 4K resolution support is going to start to be implemented as well. And the next live letter will be at Kagoshima. Now, so they showed some memories of the year of 2015. My memory actually made it on, which was pretty embarrassing. But it was pretty funny at the same time. They also showcased something they were making for fun. I don't ever believe them when they tell us this after Lords of Verminion. But they showed a cloud bike mount in the game. So I wouldn't be surprised to see it actually happen at some point. It looked really, really awkward, though. Like, so not fitting in the world of Eorzea. But who knows? They said they joked around about doing a car mount for the 15 collaboration. So, 7 remake? Maybe. So then they showed more of those memories while they were on break. And they welcomed Yoshino Nanjo, the Japanese voice of Kryl, onto the stream. I hate that her name is Kryl. I want to call her Krill so bad. And then they just talked. Like, they interviewed her about what she does. Again, all of that is on the official translations. I'm not going to go into it right now. So then they reminded people about the current events of the Starlight Celebration and the Final Fantasy XI event. Those end when the new year hits, December 31st. On January 1st, the New Year's event, Heavensward, will be coming back. They also showed the 1080-day veteran reward with Zidane. They had a little black mage minion next to it, but the Zidane tribal from Final Fantasy IX, his outfit, is going to be added to the game as a veteran reward. There's a new art book coming out tomorrow on the 24th, which, I mean, the last art book had so many boss spoilers in it that I kind of really want to buy this one. The official guide is coming out soon for Final Fantasy XIV. The Heavensward original soundtrack comes out on February 24th, and that comes with a Spoony Bard minion, which was so good. Gilbert, Edward, whatever you want to call him. There are also announced the Wayward Hatchling plush, which comes with an in-game hatchling lamp. They also announced that Final Fantasy XIV Karaoke is coming out. It's going to be added to a lot of places. It's going to have live footage and in-game footage. And they also announced that on the Japanese TV channel Game Club Esports Max, there's going to be a Wolves Den tournament on February 16th, and they're currently looking for people to participate. So they added details for that as well. The next live letter is going to be at Kagoshima on Saturday, January 30th. Now, quick information right here. That's the same weekend as PAX South. I will be at PAX South. So I will probably be able to do an overview video, but I can't guarantee that I'll be doing a live stream for that. Marco said he can do a live he can do his own stream for that one. If that's, I'll keep you guys updated on if that's going to be the case or not, or if we're going to arrange something else, because I doubt I'm going to have the internet and a shitty hotel in San Antonio to even be able to do that. Also, there's going to be a Fate in Kobe in March. The date hasn't been announced yet. And they also gave us a short trailer for Fan Festival 2016 to 2017. Las Vegas, again, October 13th through the 15th. 13th will be registration day, though. Frankfurt, Germany in February. I think they gave the exact date, but I didn't notice it on the live stream. And in Japan on December 24th and 25th. This is for 2016 and then February 2017. What that tells me, so the expansion, the initial game launched in August 2013, or Realm Reborn did. Heavensward launched in June of 2015, 22 months later. If it's a 20 to 22 month schedule, we can expect the next expansion anywhere between March of 2017 and the beginning of May of 2017. So keep that in mind. Just based on that, we still have 3.2, 3.3, 3.4, 3.5, and 3.55 before we actually get to the expansion. It's a long ways away, so I wouldn't worry about it just yet. But anyway, let me know what your thoughts were on this live letter. I, overall, was pretty happy with it. I like that they addressed the concerns regarding item level. I think a lot of people will be happier with the item level, with the difficulty of the new Savage. I personally am one of those people that loves the super difficult fights like A3. Didn't care for A4 very much. But I would rather see a broader amount of happy people in the community than, just a few people beating it and a bunch of people not able to achieve it. I think it's going to be a decent difficulty level. It'll be cleared within a reasonable amount of time, and it will probably be better for the general health of raid groups. So, Anima Weapon, the next steps will be easier. Don't expect another step to be this super crazy time-consuming, even though I personally don't feel it's that bad outside of the crafted item. Diadem is going to be getting a lot of improvements. I'm happy because I wanted to enjoy the Diadem, and I think that they listed the reasons why I think it wasn't fun. So, overall, I was happy with it. On top of that, we got more of the formula and some new PvP, which I know a lot of people don't necessarily care about. I'm always for appealing to the PvP players, though. So, I'm happy with the feast, and I'm happy for the evolution of PvP in Final Fantasy XIV. Let me know what you think in the comment section of the video below. Thank you again for watching. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share. And stay tuned for more Final Fantasy XIV videos coming your way. Be sure to check out the other videos on my channel as well. It's got some Blade and Soul stuff, some Devilian stuff. And I'll be making more videos on those after I finish my first Anima Weapon. Anyway, thank you again, and I'll see you next time. Until then, take care.